Welcome everyone. Hail to my fellow Selvan citizens. I am I.D.G Curry, and I would like to present to you the official Shogun of the Heavens YouTube channel, where we will be walking the path in each chapter of Book 1, Fall of Immortals. Narrating this thrilling, action-packed, and dramatic fantasy will be yours truly, I.D.G Curry, aka, for these sample readings, the Prophet of Pagulane. Now, without further ado, enter with me as we plummet to Gaia and into Book 1, Fall of Immortals. Prophet, proceed. From sunup to sundown in Bastia, you will hear the same sounds. Coins hitting the floor from gambling, people bidding for commodities, moaning and orgasms from the brothels, and even the whips and chains from slaves' transports can be heard breaking any silence a moment might bring. All are welcome. However, if you cannot afford a bed, the streets are not an option. You may end up in jail or, less often, being sold into slavery yourself. Xanatos was carrying Zaldan over his shoulder as they passed through the city gates. While fleeing, they had put all of their mana into their strides and did not have an opportunity to heal, knowing Xemnas was on their trail. "We've arrived in Bastia, brother. How are your wounds?" Xanatos asked Zaldan as the trio walked to the main street. "My major injuries are still healing, though I can walk on my own now," Zaldan replied, holding his head from a concussion suffered in the melee against Xemnas. Bracing himself up on Xanatos' shoulder, he still staggered but was able to walk on his own upright. A group of guards was drinking in front of the tavern closest to the main gate. This establishment was not the finest, though the ale poured here was affordable enough for guards on and off duty. "We need to find a place to rest and replenish our strength," said Zaldan. "Already taken care of. While here we secured some currency and a suitable room for..." A silver coin interrupted their conversation. It spun through the air after being tossed at Zara, hitting her in the shoulder as they walked past the guards drinking in front of the tavern. One of the three guards was drunk to the point of belligerence. "Yo, woman, come attend me in my company, and there'll be more where that came from," he shouted, slurring his words. His uniform was slightly different from the others, who wore the same colors. However, his equipment was better, and the sigil identifying him as a guard was dyed gold, not the typical blue. Ale bubbles still bursting in his beard, blue eyes, brown hair, balding in the middle, and a pale complexion, the drunken guard approached Zara. "I served in the auxiliary once with a soldier who would tell stories about women from the Dark Continent," he boasted, throwing another 2 coppers at her feet. "He told me that you all can drain the soul out of a prick. The sad thing is, he also said that you can't turn a whore into a bedwench. Breaks my heart. Shame, really, fine as you are. I might be thinking of keeping you." "Well, what are you waiting for? I paid you, and you're not walking fast enough." Rage built in Zaldan's eyes, and he turned to confront the blasphemous transgression. However, Zara stretched out in front of him. "Forgive me my boldness, but this is beneath you," Zara said respectfully. "Allow me to address this, and I will rejoin you shortly." Zaldan glared at the guard, orange fury in his eyes, took a breath to calm himself, and then gave Zara the nod of approval. Zara turned back to her presumptuous patron, giving him a slow, lip-licking smile that made the drunk guard's trousers tighten in front. "Draining you should be very pleasing," Zara said seductively, pressing her body against the guard as her long dark hair danced across her breast, and she left the coins in the mud where they landed. She wrapped her arms around him. The brew stunk on his breath, and he smelled like he hadn't been at sea for a week. He put his arm around her hips, and they walked into the tavern where the guard booked the room. His drinking companions were astonished. Their mouths gaped open as Zara led him inside for a life-changing experience. His hands felt around her figure as they entered the room and the door closed behind them. She slowly walked up to the guard, caressed the side of his jaw, and smothered his head in her bosom. Fully aroused, he dropped his trousers, trembling with excitement, and Zara pushed him with her heel, causing him to fall backward onto the bed. Sitting up, the guard watched her dance, alluringly winding her curves, removing her chest piece while never breaking eye contact, as he was captivated by her stunning orange stare. Her perky breast made the guard's blood rush. His mouth began to water in anticipation of gagging himself with her supple melons. Zara slid each of her legs over his lap. The guard was petrified by his lust and her beauty. She began to kiss along the side of his neck, reaching behind his head and gripping what little hair he had left. With force, she leaned his head over to one side and slid her tongue across his neck. His heart raced. He did his best to maintain his composure, and the guard was barely able to contain himself. Leaning forward close to his face, she asked, "Are you ready for me to drain you, darling? Do you want to erupt with pleasure? Myself, I love the taste of draining a man, far better than women. The flavor of masculinity is just orgasmic." His hands crawled up her smooth, firm thighs, up to her slender waist, and he was about to fondle 2 handfuls of breast, but then froze. Zara's jaw stretched, and her teeth extended into fangs. The magnificent siren he was entangled with turned into a mouth-watering harpy. His heart began to seize in his chest with fear, and he tried to cry out. As he attempted to raise alarm, Zara anchored her teeth into his throat and began sucking the life force out of his body. She moaned as she savored the flavor of his being, and his companions were outside, raising glasses to champion his cause while he suffocated in death's grip. His body started to dry up and decay while Zara was drinking from his neck like it was a star fruit. She released his head and retracted her fangs from his throat, leaving behind a husk and half of a uniform. Zara wiped the fluid from her mouth as she stood up to re-equip her armor and leave the tavern to regroup with her brothers. Hours would go by before the authorities found him, and no explanation would wait them when they eventually did. Zolden and Xanatos had arrived at a tavern in Mid-Bastia, the primary city sector. It produced the lion's share of Laos, the Selvan currency within the city, and was considered a middle-class residential area. Mid-Bastia was not as fine as the inner city, though one could not complain about the accommodations. Zolden needed a place discreet to recover. However, Xanatos and Zara would never subject their master to squalor. The bar area was lively with song and dance. Patrons were making merry, lifting cups of ale and squeezing the girls in their laps. Zolden and Xanatos sat down, ordering food and refreshment while awaiting Zara's arrival. "Apparently, our brother was pleased to see you, based on the scream of disappointment we heard making our escape," Xanatos said as he sipped from his mug. "His arrival was definitely unexpected," replied Zolden. "If I didn't know any better, I'd think he was trying to kill me." The pair began laughing, toasting to their escape. Now to the business at hand. Our first course of action is, Zara entered the tavern and disrupted all conversation. Her beauty seized the attention of the bar and inspired envy from all the working girls. She joined their siblings at the table, wearing a grin on her face. I take it by your cheerful demeanor that it is done, Zaldan asked Zara. It is done, and there is more than enough satisfaction to go around, she replied. Our late friend so happens to be, or was rather, the head of security for the tower that rules in this place. Zaldan displayed intrigue and interest in her discovery. Seems like Zara found the lead we are looking for. Go on, he said. He apparently served this man called the Warden, who has authority here. This Warden has been having difficulties with local road gangs and bandits, the ones that don't work for him anyway, Zara explained. Apparently, he had arranged to travel back to his homeland for his daughter, but that didn't go as planned. One of the rogue gangs intercepted the carriage and kidnapped his daughter. Zaldan pondered as she concluded, contemplating the value of this information. As you well know, Master, our brother is certainly headed in this direction, and will pursue us no matter which direction we go, or how far, added Xanatos. Enlisting in her recovery at the tower will assign us to the staging area the Warden's men have set up in the west, said Zara. Once our scents mix in with the caravan and travelers, we will be 3 steps ahead of him. Then once we have acquired the hostage, we will double back here in the private transport. You have done well, Zara. Zaldan's praise tickled her vanity. Feel free to devour on the battlefield when you can be discreet. Time moves against us, always. Xanatos, store the remaining food. I want us to be on the first caravan leaving for that staging point. We need to get that dog off our scent. Zara crossed both of her legs on top of the table. Already taken care of. I registered us at the tower in the event you want to leave immediately, she responded proudly. The next caravan doesn't leave for 4 more hours, so why not take pause and enjoy the room we have prepared for you, she asked. Yes, master, cleanse yourself of the road and rest. A meal and 4 hours rest, and your wounds would be fully healed, suggested Xanatos. Then we will retire to the room and recover for the journey ahead. The 3rd falling star is out there, and we must find it before our enemies learn of its existence. Zaldan stated as the trio arose from the table and followed Xanatos to their room, where they remained until the appointed hour. Hours later, and well rested, Zaldan and his incarnations arrived at the caravan and checked in with the quartermaster. There was a line of carriages and transport vehicles pulled by centaurs and horses alike. There are wagons filled with provisions, wheat, and slaves for digging and building fortifications. The centaurs pulled the larger wagons filled with food, and the horses pulled the wagons with the mercenaries. All the wagons were lined up, facing the outer gate. All right now, show me your departure slip, said the quartermaster. Zaldan handed the slip Zara brought from the registration. Let us see here. Passage for 3. Name. What is the name of your mercenary band? Asked the quartermaster. I wanted to leave it blank so that you can choose the name, brother, said Zara. Zaldan paused and thought for a moment. They needed a name they could work as an alias in order to avoid Xemnas' attention. The League of Pagulane. Join us next week as we get into the next part of the saga. Shogun of the Heavens Book 1 is available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle or for order at your local Barnes & Noble's bookstore. The Amazon link to purchase the book is in the description of the video. Behold, as we all dive into the world of myths and fiction. Book 2, The Throne Crusher, is still set to be released on December 9th, 2024. This installment changes the tempo of the story, allowing us to go deeper into popular role characters who will now step to the forefront of this epic tale. On this channel, we will be providing you a series of samples read from the Shogun of the Heavens book series and complemented by visuals from the story as envisioned by the author. Please like and share the video, subscribe to our channel, and comment below. Then, while you're at it, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where you can compare our competing galleries of artworks brought to life from the story. Thank you.